My name is Brian Benson with James Bean Estate Sales in Oklahoma City, and today I'm here to tell you some of the top mistakes that people who hire us to do their estate sale make. The first mistake I would say is that people make is people don't listen to our advice. And where that mistake is, you're paying a lot of money to hire a company to come in to handle your estate sale for you, and then a lot of times what happens is the first thing you do is when we start telling you this is what we need to do to make your sale successful, you start ignoring us and you think that no, that doesn't really make sense, so why should I follow it? And that's kind of what we call the main thing that people always make a mistake on is you really need to listen to us. We've had 25 years of experience, over 1,000 estate sales. We really do know what we're talking about. And pretty much most sales companies that you hire, they're going to know what they're doing. So we tell people, always listen to our advice. The next mistake that many people make is they will try to do a garage sale before the estate sale. And where this is a mistake is in many cities you can only get, it's all the same permit, and sometimes you can only get one permit per year. And if you do a garage sale and then try to have an estate sale immediately afterwards, they're not going to grant you a permit to do the sale, which could leave you high and dry trying to sell the bulk of the estate when you've tried to get all the small stuff sold. Another mistake that people will make is they'll tell all their neighbors that, hey, we're having this estate sale. And some neighbors will kind of jump on the bandwagon and think, hey, if you're having an estate sale, I want to get on the action, and they'll do their own garage sale. And what happens is they'll have a big garage sale, they'll haul a whole bunch of stuff out to the front of their house, people will pull up looking for an estate sale, shop the neighbor's garage sale, not even realizing, even with us having a big 15-foot tall sign in your front yard, they think that that's the estate sale, they'll shop it and leave, and they might miss your estate sale because they're at the next door neighbor's garage sale. The next mistake many people make is they try to be too helpful, and what they'll do is they think that somehow we're going to sell everything out of a box, and they'll go into the house and they'll box everything up in the house and put it in boxes, and when we come in, we're faced with this big house just packed full of boxes. And what we have to do is we have to go right back through those boxes, pull all of it back out, and put it right back where it was to begin with. And what happens is that doubles our labor cost, which means that we have to pass that cost right back on to you. So you can save yourself a lot of time and a lot of money by leaving everything where it is and not touching anything and letting us deal with it instead of you trying to be too helpful. And this flows into our next tip of not throwing anything away. The reason why we tell people not to throw anything away has nothing to do with the fact that everything has value and everything is priceless. What it has to do with is people always make the mistake of throwing the wrong things away. People will throw the things that are worth money away, and they'll keep the things that aren't really worth money. They'll keep those thinking that that's where the money is, and we'll go in and we can dig more money out of the trash can or the dumpster parked out front than what we're going to dig out of the closets or the cabinets. So we always say, don't touch anything, let the experts handle it, let us go in and make you the money, and don't try to get too helpful. Along the same lines as this tip, the other tip we tell people is don't get stuff and move it into a storage unit. We get lots of calls all the time from people who were in a rush, they boxed up everything, they moved everything to a storage unit, and then they call us because they don't know what to do with it. When this happens, there's not much we can do because in the Oklahoma City area, very few people have like a big area that we can take stuff to and sell anything out of. What you're going to get stuck with is you're going to have a garage full or a storage unit full of stuff. You're not going to be able to do it on site. It's going to cost a lot to get it moved and unboxed at any other site, and this can get real expensive when you look at $2,000 or $3,000 for moving costs, and then it can get expensive because then you have to rent a house, which is another $2,000 or $3,000, plus the extra labor of actually unboxing all this stuff to get it to look like a house again. So we always say, don't box everything up and move it to a storage unit because it's going to cost you usually more than the sale will run you in the first place. The next tip I would tell people is don't wait till the last minute to hire an estate sale company. Many estate sale companies like ours, we do an estate sale every single week. Sometimes we even do 2 a week, but even with that turnover, we're still usually a month to sometimes 2 or even 3 months booked in advance. And we get calls every week, people looking for an estate sale company to liquidate their sale that weekend, and you're just not giving anyone enough time to come in and do what we need to do. We always say, you want to get this stuff set up as far in advance as you can, or as far as advance as you need an estate sale. Because like I said, I've had people even book 9 months in advance in the past. A good 1 to 2 months is a good rule of thumb, to get a good quality company. If you don't do that, a lot of times you're going to get stuck with the companies that we call the leftover companies that only get business really because everybody else has picked all the top rate companies and you're getting the company that nobody else wanted to hire. The next tip I would tell people to do is make sure you get the right company to do your sell. If you have a really nice high-end sell, you don't want somebody in there who sells low-end sells. And at the same time, you don't want someone who, if you have lots of tools, you don't want to have someone who has no experience with tools and they're selling your sell full of tools. You've got to get someone who has the right experience and also the right customer base. If you have high-end items and the company you hire doesn't have those contacts, they're not going to do you any good because they can't get this stuff sold. It's kind of the concept of you have to hire the right person for the right job. Along the same lines, I always tell people, never hire someone who is a reseller. And what I mean by that is somebody who owns a resale store or somebody who has an antique store, because it's hard to get a fair, honest, unbiased result on your estate sale. We don't resell or buy anything for profit. We're here to just sell your estate sale. And why that's really important is if you have a lot of antiques and you hire an antique dealer, he's going to be at a conflict of interest when he's looking at your sale when he wants to buy your inventory for his store. Because how do you know he's going to be fair when he buys your stuff? So it's real important when you're looking at an estate sale company. I always say never hire anybody who resells what he's selling for you at his store. The next mistake that people make is they get too involved. And what I mean by this is a lot of times they don't have really good, realistic expectations on what your sale is going to do. We do sales every week. We know what's sellable, what's not sellable. We know based off the time of year, how well your sale is going to do. And we can accommodate for all of those things. And a lot of times when families get involved, they have these crazy ideas of, we paid this amount for it, 30 years ago. They think that it's still worth this amount of money. And the fact is, things, sometimes go up in value, sometimes they go down. But we know the up-to-date pricing on how sellable something is and what the prices will normally bring. Which also brings us to the next problem people have is they try to set reserves. And the reason why reserves are always kind of a big no-no is you set a reserve on something. When people come in, if it's an unrealistic reserve, they're going to look at this and say, hey, you're kind of crazy. You want $6,000 for something that's only worth $1,000. And that's going to put an idea in their head that, hey, well, maybe everything else in this house is also overpriced. So a lot of times when we're dealing with unrealistic reserves, we tell people, we don't even want the item in the house. We don't want your reserve on one item to mess up the sale of other items that you're trying to sell in your house. The next mistake a lot of people make is they try to actually be at the sale. And why I say that's always a problem is, when we're doing your sale, we have one job in mind, and that's liquidating your estate. We don't really have time to kind of hang out with you and kind of walk you through the process because we really need to concentrate on the customers. We had a sale in particular that I would point out that where the family showed up, they all hung out in the living room and kind of had a family reunion during the sale. And then after the sale was over, they were surprised that nothing in that room sold because when people would walk into the room, they felt uncomfortable walking into someone's conversation and they avoided that room and nothing sold. So it's always best if you don't come to the estate sale and let us do what we're supposed to do. That way you're not going to be in the way of getting anything sold. Another mistake people make is they get where they're not negotiable. And what I mean by that is we once had a sale where two ladies were fighting over a china cabinet. The lady wanting to buy the china cabinet wanted to pay $597.50. The person selling the china cabinet wanted $600 or she wasn't going to sell it. And literally this fight over this china cabinet was over $2.50. And what happened was everybody got their feelings hurt. The lady who wanted the china cabinet got mad, she left. The china cabinet didn't sell, and at the end of the sale, the homeowner was left with this china cabinet, and then she asked me, well, what am I going to do now? I can't take this with me. And she ended up donating this china cabinet instead of taking a very reasonable offer. Another mistake that people make is they try to leave stuff in the house that's not for sale during the estate sale. And the reason why this is really kind of a big mistake is when people come in to shop, they want to see everything they can buy. And when they come in, if the first thing they look at is not for sale, then they look at the second thing and it's not for sale, and then they see the third thing and it's also not for sale, they're going to give up looking at stuff. It gets really frustrating when they can't, they see all the stuff they want, but they can't buy it, which is why we want it out of the way so that they can concentrate on what they can buy. And that's going to make you a lot more money when they're not just leaving because they're frustrated. The last mistake I would talk about is the people who get this idea that, well, the stuff I have might not sell, so I don't want to leave it in the sale, and they'll go through and they'll cherry pick a house and they'll pull out all the best stuff out of the house and they take it with them, even if they really don't want it. And the reason why this is a mistake is when we're doing your sale and we're advertising it, we need every high-end item or every interesting item in the house that we can get. Obviously, if it's something you really want to take with you, you should keep it. But if it's something you're not really sure, you should leave it with the sale, because when we advertise, and we can use these things for advertising, when people come in, that gets them in the door. Even if they don't necessarily buy that item, once they get in the door, they'll buy all these other items and your sale will earn more money. If you take all the interesting items out of the house and they look at our ad and look at the pictures and there's nothing interesting to come back for, well, they're not going to make it in the door to buy all the little things that they would have made had you just left a few things in the sale. Thank you for watching our video on common mistakes that homeowners make when liquidating their estate. If you would like advice or need help liquidating your estate in the Oklahoma City area, feel free to give us a call at 405-528-0127 or look us up on jamesbeanestatesales.com.